Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's June here, and if you are new, welcome on board. I see you and I appreciate all your support. In today's episode, we are going to have a giveaway and an author's reading. It's going to be a good one, so let's get rolling. The Punkhawala and the Prostitute is by filmmaker, writer, lecturer, and I believe collector of vintage game machines, Wesley Leon Aruzu. Now, as you may have seen in one of my earlier videos, Wesley was super kind to mention little old me in his book. So full disclosure, the author and I are acquainted. Now, having said that, I have not read this book before. I did not read it before it was released, and so although I know a little bit about the story, the premise of it, I knew enough only that it should really be published, and I'm so glad that it was finally published and released, and I'm delighted to be able to talk to you about it today. So what exactly is a Punkhawala? Let's begin with the word punkar or punka, okay? It is actually a type of fan that has been used since the early 6th century BC. Now, the word punka or punka originated from punkh, that is the wings of a bird that produce a draft when flapped. In the colonial age, this word came to mean in British India, in the tropical and subtropical region to mean a large swinging fan fixed to the ceiling and pulled by the punkhawala during the hot weather. Now, the exact date of this invention is not known, but it wasn't common in India until the end of the 18th century. And in India, the punkhawala was the servant who operated the fan, often using a pulley system. We are transported back to the 1800s. Gobind, a deaf convict from India, is sent to serve out his sentence here in Singapore. Now, in Singapore, he is assigned to be a punkhawala in the home of an Englishman. And the troubled soul this Englishman is, having to suppress who he truly is. And filled with insecurity, he is egged on by the taunts of another into a crazy and obsessive pursuit of a tiger of mythical proportions, the elusive 𝗵𝗵𝗆. Now, 𝗓𝒐𝒃 is a young girl who unfortunately was sold into prostitution, shipped out of Japan all the way to Singapore, and all this while thinking that she was engaged to be married to a Japanese man who was waiting for her at the end of the journey. Now, while at sea, there was a major incident on board the ship. 𝗓𝒐𝒃 survives, but not the rest, and that's how she became known as the Lucky One. And combined with her good looks, she was granted certain privileges at her workplace. Here's Wesley to read us an excerpt from his book.
I couldn't sleep on my last night in Amakusa. I kept thinking about the amazing stories he told me about Singapore. He said we would sit along the Katong coast where leatherback sea turtles could be seen coming ashore. He would take me out for shopping for clothes and anything I wanted. He said that life moved quickly in Singapore, new buildings springing up each day, everything changing in the blink of an eye. He smiled and warned me cheekily that I would have trouble catching my breath from all my excitement. My chest rises and falls as I lie awake in my room. Those memories must have come to me because I didn't sleep last night either, not since my last customer left in the wee hours of the morning. I glanced at the window where the last hints of sunrise lingers. I hear the familiar sounds of the brothel waking up, the other girls dragging their feet out of their rooms, going down the stairs, seeing to their daily chores. But I'm in no hurry to get out of bed. Ottachan, you'll be proud of Panjang. In the morning and afternoon, she's free to do as she pleases. Not every karaoke has that pleasure. They scrub, clean, and see the occasional afternoon customer. But for a prize karaoke like me, the mornings and afternoons are solely mine. Ottachan, their jealousy isn't my fault. If they could make every customer happy and lucky, Assam would let them wake up late as well. Every customer I've had ends up satisfied, except for that strange white man last night. I was paid to visit. It is not often that Assam arranges for me to see a customer outside of the brothel. When it does happen, he usually pays more than what 10 men would pay in a single night. Something was different about that white man. He didn't seem interested in my body or the luck I could give him. He was only interested in hunting the man-eating tiger, 𝗵𝗔𝒍𝒆𝒚. Otto-chan, have you seen a tiger before? We don't have them in Amakusa, which is why tiger parts are so expensive. Otto-chan, I have seen one before in a photograph that a customer showed me. It was 𝗵𝗔𝒍𝒆𝒚 himself, that wild and beautiful beast. It was standing on all fours, its stripes slicing across its body. It looked unreal, but what I heard it could do is even more so. The tiger is so extraordinary that it could easily be mistaken for a yokai. 𝗵𝗔𝒍𝒆𝒚 has killed over 100 men, my customer shared enthusiastically as he pushed the photograph towards me. It can smell a man from miles and miles away. Don't even think of surprising it from the back, as he has eyes on the back of his ears, watching your every move. My friend was a photographer, and this was the last photograph he ever took, he added casually. He stood rooted to the spot by fear when a pool of pee forming at the crotch of his trousers, but he still slowly and carefully placed the lens cap back on the camera. As soon as he did, the tiger leaped towards him and struck him down. One of the hunters in our group shot 𝗵𝗔𝒍𝒆𝒚, but it did not even bother him one bit. The beast sank its teeth into my friend's neck and snapped it like a twig before ripping out his guts. I'm not embarrassed to admit that the rest of us ran away without a second thought of having to save him. If we hadn't, 𝗵𝗔𝒍𝒆𝒚 would have killed us all. But we managed to retrieve my friend's camera before we took off. Otto-chan is so scary, I can't think of anything more frightening than 𝗵𝗔𝒍𝒆𝒚. Panjang, the call from downstairs. Otto-chan, you must know. You know everything. Do you know what is more vicious than 𝗵𝗔𝒍𝒆𝒚? Is there a yokai more ferocious than that tiger? Panjang, this time the call is more insistent. I get out of my bed reluctantly and put out a plain-colored yukata. I take my time to go down the stairs. Oh yes, he comes to visit at times, a raspy voice I recognize as Asam's croaks. Good to know that Shinji Shibuya is still around. He's a great man. I stop just outside the dining room. I know this deep voice. Dread and anticipation bubble inside of me. It can't be. I take a few deep breaths and enter the room to find a slim man talking to Asam. His back faces me, a black coat draped over his narrow shoulders. His posture is relaxed, insouciant almost, with his slight slouch and his hands clasped behind his back. There she is, Asam nods at me. I choke on my own breath. I feel it get stuck in my throat as the man turns around.
Being dispatched to a foreign land, these two reluctant arrivals endure humiliation and an intense longing for home. But it is these thoughts of home, the thoughts of their loved ones, and the hope that they can someday return is what helps them to carry on despite the physical and mental torture, not to mention the indignities.
My favorite paragraph or passage from the Punkhawala and the Prostitute is probably the two opening chapters for Gobin and Oseki, sort of the first two chapters of the book. And I like it because I guess I spent the most time on those first two chapters, and also because they give you a good preview of who these characters are. And I hope the readers enjoy them too. And you can check out the sample of these two chapters over on Epigram's bookstore, online bookstore, and you can download the PDF there and check it out.
Wesley does a great job capturing and presenting these two characters who are doing what they can just to survive day by day, first separately and then together, despite the fact that they cannot communicate. For Gobin was deaf, but even if he wasn't deaf, okay, they would have spoken different languages. But then at the heart of it, they realized that they were both enslaved in their own situation until they decided to take matters into their own hands. Hey, I written down something pretty lengthy and I really want to share this with you guys. So I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget anything, right? Now, something I do want to mention about this story, and again, probably because of my own preconception and my ignorance, okay? Oseki, the Japanese girl, has a wonderful relationship with her father, who unfortunately is a compulsive gambler. He tells her many stories about yokais, and yokais, they are ghost spirits and all these supernatural entities in the Japanese culture. These stories both delight and scare her. But she never gives up on him. And that struck me as especially unique in the sense that, you know, in the Asian context, right? And especially that many years ago, I've always thought that fathers were not particularly close to daughters. Sons were always favored, right? So it's kind of refreshing to read this, though I do think that Oseki's father was, well, I think he was also a little bit manipulative, yeah. So it's, as I said, so it's kind of refreshing to see this sort of relationship. Yeah, now on that note, I also want to mention when I was reading 𝗵𝗃 Reservoir, now that's another book by Wesley Leon Aruzu. This book is actually, it's a play, okay? There is a scene with two police officers, one Malay and one Chinese. Now, this is not about race, but it's kind of going to be about race, but not being shady, so hear me out. It is the Malay police officer who was being very cautious and mindful of what they were doing in this particular scene, and he is aware of all the taboos and superstition, which I often associate with being Chinese. Now, hang in there, mostly because, hey, I grew up in a Chinese household, right? And I spent a huge part of my childhood in Chinatown, in KL, so I am fully aware of the do's and don'ts and all the beliefs and and all the superstitions that is prevalent among the Chinese community. I don't know all of it because, you know, but I know enough. So the point I'm trying to make here is that I appreciate that, you know, Wesley has done it again. He shifted my perception about things and culture, and and pushed me out of my own stereotype. The success and progress of a nation is built not only on the backs of those whose name we read about in history books, whose portraits we hang in museums, and for whom we erect statues and name roads and bridges after. There is this other side of a history, and it's not always pleasant, but it is pertinent. This is very much like the two characters that we meet in this book. Now, the job of the Punkhawala is to provide the comfort of a draft to those who can afford them, but he's never seen. The system of ropes and pulleys ensures that he is kept out of sight of the residents and their guests. Now, I did not know there were Japanese-owned and ran brothels here in Singapore back in the day. Now, these working girls, otherwise known as Karaoke-san, many were repatriated in the later years, but some had remained, although I'm not sure if by choice, and lived out their days here and around the region, and some have, you know, just passed on while they were living here, never to see their homeland again, and I think that's really sad. We see the parallel in today's world. Many people leave their home countries to work abroad. Some leave reluctantly, and many are tricked or forced into some very unpleasant situations. We need to do better in the way we recognize them, interact with them, acknowledge their contribution, protect or even save them. A story like this reminds us how far we've come, but more importantly, how much further we still need to go. And guys, I'm super excited. I'm having a giveaway here as well as on my Instagram, so please make sure you follow me there as well at @RightOnCourse. So if you want to win a signed copy of the Punkhawala and the Prostitute by Wesley Leon Aruzu, please drop me a comment. 𝗀𝗵𝗃𝗃. 𝗀𝗵𝗃𝗃. This is in honor of those people whose name that have been forgotten but have contributed to the growth of the region, to all the countries around this region. So 𝗀𝗵𝗃𝗃 if you want to win a signed copy of the Punkhawala and the Prostitute by Wesley Leon Aruzu. Terms and conditions apply. Make sure you're above the age of 18 and you have a legit Singapore address. And yeah, I make up the rules as usual. I'm sure you understand. But of course, I try to be as fair as possible. And yeah, so good luck. The competition will close on January 28th at noon Singapore Malaysia time. So again, you can take part in the giveaway here as well as on Instagram, which will be coming up a little bit later. Okay, so you have two chances of winning, either here or through my Instagram at @RightOnCourse. That's all for this episode, guys. I hope you have enjoyed the video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, like, what? Or give us a thumbs up anyway. Please subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, but it would mean so much to me. And this video took a bit of time for me to put together because there really was so much that I wanted to say. But I hope you guys go out and grab a copy of this book. I gave it 5-star, and yeah, it is really something that I really enjoyed. Not just because my name was mentioned in the book, okay? I told you that already, full disclosure. I did enjoy this book very much. In fact, I told Wesley that I wished it was a little bit longer because I think this could be like a mega epic Singapore novel. Until I see you again, remember to be kind and be brave. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!